with Rachel V. Hill, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of Joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
I just got one of the funniest emails ever, which we'll get into. But of course, we have to be talking about the new name that everybody on Twitter is freaking out about. Literally, my phone has been exploding. Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. People definitely don't like change, that's for sure. I still, even to this day, still call it Dove Valley, even though I believe it's gone through 2 name changes now at this point. It's like calling Mile High or Empower Field at Mile High, just Mile High. Like, it just rolls off the tongue a little bit easier. But I know people are pissed off about the Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. Let me know in the comments how you are feeling. I saw one of them. Good morning to everybody in the comments. Hello. Hope you guys are doing very well. But I saw this one. This was one of the comments when I had retweeted Mike Kliss, who announced it. Broncos practice at Dove Valley and play games at Mile High. Fight me. And I feel like that just screams what everybody is honestly thinking, because it's so true. Like, everybody just calls it Dove Valley. I don't know why. Like, I don't know how long it'll last. I'm trying to think of how long it took me to think from Pepsi Center to Ball Arena. And I feel like it took me a solid season. But it hasn't been Dove Valley in years. And I feel like it's just one of those things that is really hard. Centura Health became Common Spirit about a month after they got the rights correct. So that's essentially why it's now turning into Common Spirit. To be completely honest, I hate the new name. Please keep the comments coming. I love to see them. They always make my day so much better. I feel like it's just something we're going to have to get used to. I'm not going to lie, though. The Broncos Park, I feel like I can get behind, especially because it's on Broncos Parkway. Like, it all kind of just rolls off the tongue easily. But I don't see anybody calling it Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. I think it'll just be Broncos Park. If people even change over from Dove Valley, it literally could be Dove Valley for the rest of the time. Like, oh, see, somebody says Broncos Park sounds cool. I'm kind of with you. Like, it doesn't sound bad. We're never going to say powered by Common Spirit, but Broncos Park isn't bad. It's just going to take some time for people to get on board with it, I think. I was laughing though, because I got this email this morning. Are you guys ready for this? Zach Wilson in list of most washed NFL players according to social media data. I'm like, okay, interesting enough. Zach Wilson in list. Do you want to take just a guess while we continue talking about the new naming? Take a guess at who is the number 1 most washed player in the league. I think people could probably guess them top 3, but I think it'll be interesting. But let me know. It's not Pepsi Center, LOL. It has not been Pepsi Center in a long time. Surprisingly, I always, I used to mess up all the time, and I was like, Pepsi Center, and I was like, oh, Ball. But I feel like now it's just Ball Arena. I don't even think about Pepsi Center. It's just Ball Arena. So I guess the marketing team over there has done really well. But I'll be very curious to see how people handle the Broncos Park. I'm seeing some more comments roll in. Broncos Park is fine. We could also call it what the players call it, the facility. It's true. They do just call it the facility, the training facility. Down here at the training facility. Keep the comments coming, because I'm kind of just here for the day. Andrew Mason might join us here in a little bit. We're just chatting. Tomorrow we're going to have a really good preview on a recap of Broncos OTAs and then what we're looking for today. I've also asked people on social media. I was like, what do you want to which players do you want to know about? And we'll go over a few of those, because I know people are interested about Javonte Williams, what's happening at center. Of course, the quarterback battle is a common one. But yeah, Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it, to be completely honest. But I see some names rolling in for this email I got. First of all, the fact that I get emails about these type of things that are just so random. I've never once been I wonder who's the most commented washed up athlete on social media. I just feel I'm what are we doing? I'm still reading the comments, so please keep them coming. But Zach Wilson is on the list of the most washed up NFL players according to social media data. He comes in at number 6. I was like, okay. Aaron Rodgers comes in at number 1, though. Does not surprise me even in the slightest. I saw somebody comment Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson did come in on the list at number 3. Travis Kelce comes in at number 2. And I think a lot of that just comes from the hate with all the Taylor Swift stuff. So I don't think he's necessarily washed up, but I think people are saying that now. Because of the relationship with Swifties over there. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers coming in at number 1. I definitely see that, though. I think people all the time, his recovery has just been absolutely insane, too. So please keep it coming. Broncos Park is fine. The whole name is too much. I actually agree with this. I don't mind Broncos Park. I'm going to try really, really hard to actually say Broncos Park. but I feel like I'm still going to call it Dove Valley. So you guys have to be correcting me on this one because I feel like I'm just going to say this constantly. Who is going to win the Broncos QB job? What an excellent question. And if I had the answer, I think I would be a coach in the NFL. I do not have the answer, but to be completely honest, it's going to be interesting to see because I said this multiple times. Sean Payton is very particular about the way he does things. Like, that's just the open and honest truth. He's very particular. There is a reason that Bo Nix was the number one starter, the number one team reps guy when we were out there last week for training camp. He did that for a reason. There's no way he was like, oh, we'll just throw Bo Nix on the day that the media can come out. No. It is definitely one of those things where he for sure did that on purpose. Sean Payton is way too particular with those type of things. So I think he really did do it on purpose. I think Bo Nix is leading it. He's been working with the ones. I've had this conversation with a bunch of people actually recently, even family members who were asking me, like, what do you actually think about the quarterback battle? And I think they want Bo Nix to be the future. Like, they're going to do everything in their power to make sure he's ready for week one. But if it's just not there, if it's just not working quite yet, the chemistry is not there, timing's not there, he's not getting the ball out fast enough, all of those things that you have to deal with when you have a rookie QB, I think that they will go with Jared Stidham or Zach Wilson. I do find it interesting that so far Sean Payton has talked mainly about Zach Wilson. He hasn't really said anything too complimenting of Jared Stidham at this point. But Zach Wilson, he talked about his arm strength and how he's looked. And I could see Zach Wilson being the starter week one. I could also see Bo Nix being the starter week one. I think it'll be interesting to kind of see who's out there tomorrow for Broncos OTAs, who is working with the ones. The quarterback battle is, of course, the most interesting conversation. Will Peterson joined me just the other day, and we were talking about, how it needs to be two quarterbacks. We can't have the three quarterbacks. I think that sets this team up for failure because there has to be chemistry with your wide receivers, your tight ends, your running back, everything. And if you have different tendencies, even in the slightest way of how you hand off the ball, or, it can be a millisecond essentially, and that is enough time in the NFL to have an incomplete pass or an interception. So you have to start getting that chemistry with all these players. We can't have a 33% rotation with all of them. So I'll be interested to see who gets the number one reps tomorrow when we are out there for practice. So make sure you tune in for that as well. Cecil and Lammy and I will break everything down for Friday's coffee break that you need to know immediately after practice. That way you just know everything ahead of time. Keep the comments coming. See, I think people already are like, Nix has already won it. And I don't think that's true. I think they want him to be, right? That's why you essentially got him you took him so early. You took him at 12 is because you want him to be your quarterback, but there's no way that we will absolutely know that. And if he's not there, Sean Payton has a lot of pride. Sean Payton wants this team regardless to be a playoff team, whether that is just making the wild card game and they get bounced. He wants it to be a playoff team. He has so much pride in doing that. And I think he will do no matter what it takes to do that. He wants Bo Nix to be the guy. He does. I know that for a matter of fact. Of course you do. That's why you take him at 12. But if he's not the guy and he's just not at that level yet, I think that they will go with somebody like Zach Wilson, who has already played in NFL games. And yes, he may have struggled multiple times. That's why he's on this washed list that I'm getting emailed about. But I do think that if Bo Nix is just not quite there yet, no matter how much you want him to be the future, I think they'll roll with one of the other two quarterbacks. And I think that kind of information we'll find out at training camp. Yeah, it's not something that's going to be decided early on. They're going to let this ride out, decide at training camp, end of it. When they start their joint practices with Green Bay, I think that's when we'll kind of find out who the real number one starter is. So be ready for the conversation to constantly be flipping over and over and over again. One day you're going to hear Bo Nix is leading, and one day you're going to hear Zach Wilson's leading, or Jared Stidham, or whoever it's going to be, but it's always going to be Bo Nix versus the others too in that conversation. Let's see. Thanks, Rachel, for the honesty. That's what I'm here for. Honestly, I'm so lucky because I just get to talk sports. I just get to hang out in my office with all the sports memorabilia, and I get to talk sports with all of you guys. So thank you for spending a little bit of your time with me and just sitting out and feeling it. So with a few real practices, do we think we will really get a feel before week one? I think we will have a feel of what this offense is really going to look like come training camp. And I'm saying the very end of training camp. Like I said, it is going to flip-flop every single day. You're going to turn into my show, Orange and Blue Today, 104.3 The Fan, and you are going to hear Bo Nix was leading today or Zach Wilson was leading today. It's going to be a constant rotation. So just buckle up for that because it's going to be a long couple of weeks, everybody, where we're just really getting a feel for it as well. Wide receiver and running back should be interested how it shakes out. 100%. I'm really paying attention to the running back. If you think about it, they have got a list of players. And actually, I'd asked on social media, I was like, tell me what players you want to know about at OTAs. And one of the questions that came in was burst from Javonte Williams. Has it improved? And I will say so far, what we've seen out of Javonte is he's not back to where we all thought he was going to be. It's not that he's timid. I just don't think he's got that compound it right into the ground and be able to shift a certain way like he could before. And he's not the guy that's going to be carrying everybody on his back, right? Like everybody, I just remember all of the memes that were like, oh, Javonte Williams carrying 5 members on his back, carrying the entire Denver Broncos on his back because he was literally running down the field like 5 to 10 yards too. We're not talking like a yard or two. We're talking like 5 to 10 yards with like 3 or 4 defenders on his back. He's not there yet. And I don't know if he will ever get back to that position. There has to be a mental aspect to it too. I mean, think about if you've gone through an injury. I sprained my ankle last year from running, and I still have not convinced myself to go running. Now, I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to go out there and play the game of football, but there is a mental cycle to it of like, you just never want to get back to that point. And I think Tim Patrick is also dealing with this. I talk about it a lot for tomorrow's episode of like, Timmy P is very, very timid. I'm not sure what it is, if he's just trying to take it slow, like, but 2 years back to back or tearing your ACL and your Achilles, I don't blame him. Like there is that mental aspect to it. So we'll see what ends up happening tomorrow. I will definitely pay more attention to Devontae, see what that running back group is looking like. There's a lot of names over there, though. So it's not going to be surprising that it's going to be a battle. The wide receiver room is going to be a battle, which is why I have a major, major problem with Cortland Sutton not being out there just for chemistry building alone. I'm frustrated with Cortland Sutton. I'm like, yeah, I know you're working out down there in Miami with your trainer, but like get back up here and work with the 3 quarterbacks that you now have. Whether it be Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, or Jarrett Stidham, you have to build that chemistry. And I've been frustrated all along with Cortland Sutton on that front. Also, if you're going out to training camp this year, I forgot to mention this at the top of the show. This is really good news, but they are not going to start construction for like the new headquarters for the Broncos until after training camp. So this will probably be the last year we are ever sitting on the hill over there at Broncos Park. I almost said Dove Valley, at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. So this will be like the last year. I remember going as a kid and sitting down there on the hillside and sweating in the sun and getting a sunburn, but getting so excited to go sign autographs and get those autographs. So definitely make sure you do that this year because it's the last time you're going to be able to. Construction will start after training camp, which, to be honest, I'm totally here for. Otherwise, with construction, all the people that go down there, parking would be a nightmare. So I'm totally okay with this. So yes, I do think that will be major. Don't beg court. Wide receiver squad is loaded. I kind of agree with that. Like if you don't want to be here, then I don't want you to be here. And it feels like he doesn't want to be here. The tides have quickly turned on Cortland Sutton, which has been super interesting to me. Like people used to love Cortland Sutton. And then when he posted everything, when Jerry Jeudy got traded, with Russell Wilson obviously getting traded, felt like Broncos country really turned on him because it was like he was missing all of those guys and he was all of a sudden the lone man in the room. But there's plenty of other guys that are there. Tim Patrick was still here the entire time. So I'll be interested to see if Timmy P, obviously we're paying attention to his injury, how he's out there in practice. But if he takes that leadership mentality of like, I'm the guy that's been here the longest, like, let's go, even though I haven't been out on the field, that's also something I will pay attention to. Let's see. Keep your comments coming. I love chatting with all of you guys today. So thanks for just spending a little bit of your time hanging with me. If Nick starts, how much of a leash does he have? If we start 0-5, is he pulled, or do we let him ride through the thick and thin? I actually like this question a lot because I just think that they're going to know even before the season starts. They're going to have an idea and they're not going to put Bo Nix out there. I'm totally a person of like, throw him out there, send him to the Wolves. Like that's the quickest way you're going to learn. Think about Peyton Manning, right? His interception record from his rookie year. I think eventually somebody will beat it. Hopefully it's not Bo Nix, but like throw him out to the Wolves. That's the best way you're going to be able to grow. But if Sean Payton doesn't think that he, like I said, has the quick release, if he's going to be able to handle the pressure and read the defenses as quickly as he can, I just don't think they're going to do it. I think they'll go with Zach Wilson. He obviously has the NFL experience, even though he has struggled. So I just don't even think that they'll put him out there week 1 unless they truthfully believe that they can ride with him. But if they did, so let's just go with the scenario. If Nick starts, how much of a leash does he have? If we start 0-5, is he pulled? At that point, I don't think so. I don't even know if he would get to 0-5, if I'm going to be honest. I think Sean Payton has enough pride that he wants this to be a playoff team. And so if they start 0-2 out there and they're getting slaughtered because they can't move the offense, then I think that they would just pull Knicks right off the bat. But I just don't think that they'd even get to that point. But to be honest, don't be mad at me, Broncos country. Like, are any of these quarterbacks giving you hope? Let me know in the comments. Please let me know in the comments. Are any of these quarterbacks actually giving you any sense of hope? Like, are you like, yeah, this is the season we're going to make it back to the playoffs? Or are you just like, we're going to see how this season goes and like what we actually have. So maybe in 4 or 5 years, we can make it back to the playoffs. Please let me know in the comments because this is very interesting for me in that sense. Okay. So I see multiple comments about this. Is VJ on thin ice? Vance Joseph needs to step up or go see the door. The weakness for Denver is Vance Joseph. I'm 50-50 on VJ right now, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think that when you have, I see Andrew Mason behind the scenes. So he's the perfect guy to talk about VJ with. Yes, Andrew Mason, good morning. How are you?
I'm great, Rachel. How are you?
Good, I'm good. Okay, so we're chatting in the comments today. We're taking everything from OTAs and such, and of course talking about the name change. But a lot of people right now are talking about the weakness for Denver is Vance Joseph. How do you feel? I'm 50-50 on VJ right now.
Vance is in a really interesting spot because you've got Jim Leonard on the staff now, one of the more coveted defensive minds in the last few years coming into the NFL. Very successful coordinator at Wisconsin, briefly their interim head coach in 2022.
Yep.
After they fired Paul Christ. And then took last year, not off, but like he had hip replacement surgery. So he had the chance to join the Broncos staff last year and chose not to.
Yeah.
To have the hip replacement. And then the Broncos did inquire, like, he played briefly for Sean Payton in New Orleans. So Payton go back a ways. Now he was available after consulting on Illinois staff, and he comes in. But with Jim Leonard, you've got somebody who is a ready-made coordinator. Like the Packers have had interest in him a couple of times. Other NFL teams have sniffed around him. He's regarded as an up-and-coming coach. And I think you're in a situation where if the Broncos get off to a sluggish start on defense, there may be a passing of the baton here. With like that's the thing that's kind of under the radar here. I don't think it's something that's imminent they're thinking about. But if they struggle at the start, and look, we saw what this defense looked like without Justin Simmons last year. It was not good. Now you don't have Justin Simmons in there. There could be some uncomfortable questions asked because personnel-wise, they're better defending the run, but they probably took a hit against the pass, losing Justin Simmons, losing that ball hawk back there. So is this defense better? I'm not sure just yet.
Okay, so it's funny because when people talk about Justin Simmons now, obviously the question arises about Brandon Jones. Yeah. And not a lot of people seem very high on him. And, one of the things about this team, Mace, is it is so young now. Like with Justin Simmons now gone, Brandon Jones is out there and he's like, I'm now the veteran guy in the room and he's still pretty young. Yeah. Where would you rank Brandon Jones? So like Justin Simmons is the top, right? Like led the league in interceptions. Where are you ranking Brandon Jones if Justin Simmons is a 10 and the bottom of the bottom is obviously a 0?
I mean, I think Brandon Jones is about league average. So if Justin Simmons is 10, I think Brandon Jones is probably about a 6.
Okay.
Yeah, they're different. They're different. Well, they're different types of safeties. Now, Brandon Jones is going to be an improvement against the run. Yeah. He will get up there in the box. He will make some plays. And a key part of everything the Broncos did this offseason defensively was their run defense. Look at the Miami game, for example. It was catastrophically bad at times last year. Mm-hmm. So part of it, they made a hard choice to let go of Justin Simmons, but they kept DJ Jones because you wanted to keep another defensive lineman around who be a stuffer. You bring in Malcolm Roach, who by analytics was one of the best run defenders in the league last year in free agency. You trade for John Franklin Myers in the draft, so you fortified your defensive line. You probably took a step back in terms of run defense at linebacker, exchanging Josie Jewell for Cody Barton, but with Barton, you improved in coverage. Hopefully, you can take care of tight ends a little bit better than you have. Yeah. But then you balance that out by bringing in Brandon Jones, who I think is an upgrade on Justin Simmons against the run. So that's most of the moves are leading towards being better against the run and forcing the hand of teams a little bit to throw. And then I'm a little nervous about safety. PJ Locke played well last season. They brought him back.
Yep.
We didn't see Caden Stearns on the field last week. I think anything you get from Caden's probably a bonus at this point because he hasn't been healthy the last 2 years. So if he's able to contribute rotationally, great.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you just focus on other things.
Yep.
But you're setting things up to where teams are going to have a little bit more trouble running the ball, and thus they're gonna look to the air, and that's why I worry about the safety core there, and that's where I also worry about what you're doing at number 2 corner. Now you have Levi Wallace who can handle that role, but I think they like Riley Moss to be that guy. And and if Riley makes progress there, shows growth, you're feeling pretty good. If not, Levi Wallace is kind of what Fabian Moreau was last year when he came in for Damari Mathis.
Yes. I did just see a comment and it said, why not re-sign Simmons? Essentially, they couldn't afford him. Like, I do think that they probably would have kept him if money wasn't an issue. But with the Russell Wilson contract and how much you were eating there and how much Simmons was taking up in cap space, they just couldn't afford to keep him.
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting is like looking at the Broncos in terms of salary cap space. The NFLPA today has them at $7.2 million of cap space. In terms of effective cap space that over the cap keeps track of, it's a little over $5 million. And so you'd say, okay, great, you can bring Justin Simmons back for $4 million. Well, there are a couple of things in play. Number one, in the offseason, only your top 51 contracts count toward the cap. That changes when you get to the regular season. So you've got a little – so, I mean, if your league minimum salary is just below $1 million, basically that's – you start there. That's, another $1.8 million with 2 guys, right?
Yeah.
Potentially. That's so point number one. Point number two, inevitably you have injuries and you need to bring guys in during the season. So you're always going to want a cushion about $7 or $8 million of salary cap. And you are dissolving that if you bring in Justin Simmons. So that's why I think if you're talking about Simmons, it's not likely. The other thing on Simmons is this. At this point, he knows his best play is to wait for out training camp, see which teams are unhappy with their safety situations, and maybe he can choose to go to a playoff spot. Broncos country, you may remember Evan Mathis back in 2015. Great season at guard the previous year, but went unsigned early in free agency. So there came a point where Mathis just said, I'm going to sit back and wait. See if there's a team that's unhappy, and then I'll go there and kind of pick my spot, maybe with a contender. Well, he does that. Broncos aren't happy with their interior offensive line midway through training camp. They sign Evan Mathis. He starts for a team that goes to Super Bowl.
Yep.
That's what Justin Simmons is doing right now. He's going to wait, see what situation develops, and then he's the best guy out there. Somebody's going to call. And so he knows that possibility is going to almost certainly exist for him in August, which is why hey, you can pick up the phone and offer him $4 million now. I don't think he'd say yes.
Agreed. What's also funny is I think people, we all get attached so much to players, right? But if I'm Justin Simmons, what is attractive about the Denver Broncos besides the fact that my family is here and the school is here? Like, there are so many other teams that are actually in the playoffs or will be Super Bowl contenders that could possibly need him. And at the end of the day, that's all you want to do is win a Super Bowl. So I'm like, nothing about Denver seems very attractive. Like even Brandon Jones, when he was talking about, some of the other options, I'm sure the Broncos probably offered him the most money and that's why he came here. But I'm like, what about the Broncos looks attractive to pretty much anyone?
Exactly at this point, because you're going in with a new quarterback.
Yeah. Well, you're going into actually a quarterback battle, which is a nightmare. Yeah.
Quarterback battle at this point. Yeah. I do think all roads lead to Bo Nix, and hopefully we're talking about sooner rather than later. But this is a team that realistically is thinking 25, 26, see where they are. Like the most important thing about this season for the Broncos isn't the win-loss total.
The
It's
development.
It's Bo Nix's development. I mean, we have, for two of the big four teams here in the Mile High City, the on-field results aren't as important as just how our players developing, right?
Yep.
That's the lot in life for the Colorado Rockies and the Denver Broncos today.
Yeah, that's the truth. And it sucks being a fan of it because you want to be talking about championships, but it really is all about the development of Bo Nix. Like, nothing else really matters. That's why I even said, though, I was like, Sean Payton has a lot of pride. Like, he wants this team to be a playoff team. So if Bo Nix isn't there week one, if Bo Nix just, the speed's not there, his ability to get the ball out of his hands isn't there, like, I don't think they're going to start him. I think that they will just keep him back and make sure that he is, like, ready to go at that point, and they'll go with Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham. I
think so, too. I don't think they'll push him out there. Now, that being said, I think there's a moment where you need to get him out there and realize, okay, the important thing is learning about Bo Nix and getting him reps. And some of that may depend on where the win-loss record is. There could reach a point in the season where even if Bo Nix is not at the level of Zach Wilson, Jarrett Stidham, or both, it's simply time to play him. And you do that and you move on. I also think there's a chance that Bo Nix shows enough here in the next 2.5 months or so to where you're sitting there in mid-August and saying, if we give him all the first team reps now, how much better is he than if we give the first team reps to Stidham or Zach Wilson? Well, that's the discussion that you're having. It's not just where they are now. It's where each of them is. If you give them all the first team reps, who improves the most? I'd argue that the answer is going to be Bo.
That's my thing, is there's so much chemistry in football. Like, people tend to just think like they're professionals, they can do it. No, there is something about chemistry. If we're dividing this 33, 33, 33 by all three of these quarterbacks, they're never going to improve drastically enough that you're going to see a big enough difference. Like 50-50 is even questionable. You have to have one guy who is constantly working out with the same guys, which is why I hate the quarterback battle.
Yeah, and I wonder if there'll be a reassessment here after this week, because next week, you have 4 practices. This week and last week, it's actually pretty easy to say. 3.
Yeah.
1 each day of that week.
Yep.
Next week, you get to 4, because that brings you to 10 OTA sessions. Is that the week where you start to divide it a little bit differently? And certainly, are you dividing it differently by mini camp? If they're still doing 1, 2, 3 for mini camp, I'm a little concerned here. I would like a little bit of clarity on it before you get to training camp. And if they're still doing 1, 2, 3 in training camp, I mean, how long do you let that go? But then the other thing also, Rachel, is this. Then you really are saying, in a weird way, it's not about this year. It's about figuring out which of these quarterbacks is the long term, because there is another thing here, and Zach Wilson did not have a good day last week, but maybe he'll come out. Maybe he comes out this week and he tears.
Quiet.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, he had that interception he threw. He was looking for Nate Atkins. He was in heavy traffic, and he took off and ran that one time in 7-on-7.
Yeah. So bad.
Okay, I mean, but it was practice. Yep. You ideally learn from that. If Zach Wilson comes out and gets better in the scheme and starts tearing up the pea patch, as the late Red Barber baseball announcer used to say, it gets interesting, because there could still be the belief in untapped upside with Zach Wilson, right? That, okay, here's this guy who was a number 2 overall pick, and he has these traits, and if we get him into our scheme, is he able to grow? Now, that being said, what we saw from Zach Wilson over the last 3 years wouldn't make him Sean Payton's type of quarterback, because, oh, by the way, he tends to drift and move into sacks, not unlike the other guy surnamed Wilson, who was just here. Are you able to coach that out of him?
True.
That's a question worth asking. They saw enough in the skill set to give him a look, and we know Sean Payton likes him some reclamation projects. Kerry Collins back in New York when he was the Giants offensive coordinator, took them all the way to the Super Bowl 35 back in the day.
Yeah.
He He brought in Teddy Bridgewater. He brought in Jameis Winston in New Orleans. Brought in Drew Bledsoe when he was the offensive coordinator of Dallas. Sean Payton likes his first-round picks who have become, as he would say, orphan dogs.
I know. It's such a terrible name. Okay, Mace, last one for you. The show goes always so fast. And thank you for taking some time today. Who's starting tomorrow, right? Sean Payton kind of told us nonchalantly, like, don't think too much about Bo starting last week. But if Bo is starting again with the ones this week, that has to mean something, right?
Or it just means it was the second multiple of 3, that it went Stidham, Wilson, Nix, Stidham, Wilson, Nix.
It's so
that they kept the same rotation.
So
that's the thing. We would have gotten more of an idea if we were out there today for the second practice, but we're out there for the second multiple of 3 Thursday. So that's.
I just think Sean Payton knows what the talk of the talk is. So like he has to know that if he puts Bo out there again tomorrow, that everyone's going to assume he's probably QB number 1 at this point.
Yeah, I'd say so.
You never know. Plenty of great comments today, though. So thank you to everybody. Mace, amazing job today. I appreciate you and all of your insight, of course. And then Orange and Blue today, you guys got rolling at 4:00. Plus, I know there's wonderful stuff happening over at denversports.com. So make sure everybody checks it out. We will see you guys later. Again, thank you for all the comments, for hanging with us for a little bit today. And we will see you. I've already got tomorrow's episode rolling for you guys of everything. A little recap on last week's OTAs. A look ahead to what I'm looking for this week on OTAs, and we'll be out at Broncos practice tomorrow. So just make sure you follow us on social media, and we'll see you guys later. Bye, everybody.